Bristol Motor Speedway is set to host the 2006 edition of the Food City 500 for the chase for the WINSTEL Cup. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Blake McCandless as we get ready to go racing in the Gen 4 Challenge in WINSTEL sanctioned competition. Cold weather expected to be a major factor today as it is freezing cold, Blake, here at Bristol. That means the speed's likely going to be higher, the grip level's higher, but that won't cool down many of the tempers, despite some who got the chance to play in the snow during the Busch Grand National Series event yesterday.
No, certainly not, Justin. And the one thing that'll make is that this track is going to be flying. You're going to see a lot of drivers really favoring that outside lane. Again, temperatures are down, so the speeds are really going to pick up. I mean, we're seeing drivers right now in qualifying running very kind of almost in the mid 14-second bracket. So these guys are absolutely flying around this racetrack. Should make it for a pretty good race at Bristol tonight.
The championship has been hotly contested throughout this entire campaign. The question is going to be which drivers can handle their tempers at the short track. Here at Bristol, the last great Coliseum, as some may nickname it, half a mile distance. When it comes to iRacing's virtual counterpart, the fuel limit will factor in the potential of a green flag stop. But the question is, will we get to that point for the track known for cautions, breeding cautions, breeding cautions? Qualifying has already wrapped up, and one driver has shot up to the top of the board after some rough qualifying performances this season. It is Brendan McKissick in the number 42 machine for Chip Ganassi Racing on the pole tonight. Larry Pace continues to shock the world. He'll start second. Remember, had a strong run to start off the season at Daytona. Marcus Lindsay starts in third tonight alongside Sean Butler. Brendan McGee and Zach Campbell start in row 3. A full Abraham Motorsports row 3. Sean Pellig is starting in row 4 alongside Parker Alexander. Dylan Roberts trying to keep some momentum up. His top 5 of the points starting in row 5. And Alex Kolinix has been strong in qualifying throughout this campaign. He starts in 10th, Blake.
Rolling off from 11th will be Jose Solis Jr. 12th will go to Christina Ryan. 13th, Philip Snipes. 14th will go to Ryan Doucette. James Holzer will start in 15th. 16th to Timothy Latham. Emily Howe will start in 17th. 18th, Christian Budd. Thomas Lewandowski will start in 19th. Nicholas Doucette, 14. 934 will put him in 20th.
21st spot goes to Anthony Krolbach. The number 18 machine, looking to try and avoid some curses today after what happened in Atlanta. Alex Bates starts 22nd. The last qualifiers, Gabriel Mauricio, his worst qualifying performance of the season, 23rd after having an average start of 5th on the speedways. Nick Terabach starts 24th today, starting for Petty Enterprises, and Andy Trupiano starts 25th. The first of the non-recorded times, John Schwartz. The rest of the field, Justin Rowden, along with Brandon Mosalves, Ken Huff, Leonardo Barrera, along with Hayden Ripas. The 31 drivers who will be on the field and on the track for tonight's action. 100 laps on the docket, Blake. Laps expected to go quickly as mentioned. Your keys to victory here tonight at a very cool racetrack.
Well, what we've seen a lot in this series is track position is going to matter. Again, 100 laps at Bristol, not a very long time if you think about where we're going to be running more than 4 or just above 4 laps a minute with the speeds that these drivers are clicking off. We've seen a lot of chaos, a lot of big wrecks in this series, so I think you're going to want to stay out front, and even more so than protecting your tires, I really think you're going to want to keep that track position, and a lot of that, I believe, is going to be running through the top side. So you also want to be on the outside of these restarts as well.
There's a saying when it comes to Bristol. It's Bristol, baby. And we're going to see which drivers can handle Bristol tonight in about a lap's time around the pace laps here. Your favorites, in your opinion, to come away with the checker flag.
You know, I would say I'm looking at a guy like, let's see, you know, why don't we look at Sean Butler? I know he's somebody who's been running very competitively in this series. He's been up front a lot, just hasn't quite been able to close out the deal just yet, but hopefully get some luck on his side. I know he's been running really well in the races he's been doing this week, so I'll go with the 35 car. I think he's maybe got one up his sleeve tonight.
It's been an incredible story, getting that car from Petty Enterprises to start off the season, having one tire for Auto Club, damaging said car at Atlanta after some struggles early in what turned out to be a green flag to checkered race. But tonight could be different. 100 laps up on the board. The Food City 500 is set to go. Brandon McKissick in control of the field. We're underway from Bristol. And a very good launch for Brandon McKissick, able to hold on to the race lead. And already some drivers trying to find their way towards the top in some cases, others keeping it side by side to end lap 1.
Side by side throughout the field, and I think again you're going to start to see whether the top or the bottom is going to prevail up front. It looks like the bottom working out so far, but man, these guys are just flying around, carrying so much momentum on the top side as these tires really start to work their way in. I wouldn't be surprised to see that top side really get rolling. We see Butler able to make a move for second, and McKissick going to go up there to halt that move from Butler, and you see Larry Pace there on the bottom, going to lose second, maybe going to lose third here as he going to go side by side off of 2.
Still side by side for the battle for second position. And keep in mind the reason many of the drivers prefer to run that bottom, Blake, tire management. Some like to use the top to pass, but the bottom has been seen by some as the better way to save. One driver not saving, Zach Campbell. He's up to second. He wants the lead. Side by side, Dodge versus Dodge.
I can't really blame Zach Campbell. Again, we've had a lot of early caution flags in this season, and it's all been about track position, track position, track position. So if you can get it, I think if you're Campbell, it's not necessarily a bad move to kind of abandon some of that tire saving that you were talking about, just go full out. And obviously McKissick going to be aware of that and go up to the top as Campbell rides along. But a very quick move for Campbell. Started 6 already, up to second early on in this one.
Bad news for fans of Alex Collins, by the way. Technical issues starting from the pit lane, has not hit the track yet. Sean Butler, meanwhile, is getting shuffled back along with Larry Pace to the edges of the top 10. Not an easy place to pass without contact, keep in mind. Campbell, he's now retreated back to the bottom as well. In fact, most of the top 5 has to try and go that tire save line through entry.
They have. You see about 4 cars there stuck on the bottom. Butler, Pace, the 9 machine.
Campbell's got the run, trying to get the inside, just can't get it to work. Squeezed on down by McKissick. He retreats back to the high side.
But now Campbell, he'll get a big run here off of turn number 2. And will he try to maybe complete the slide job? No, he'll just stick in line right there as they work off of 3 and 4. Still about the same 4 drivers that are stuck in that inside line. Further on back, about 6th or 7th position is where they fall into. But Justin, they cannot find a way to get up to the top side of the racetrack. They are still stuck there on the bottom.
Butler getting loose, meanwhile, off the bottom, coming around the front straightaway, just about gone into a few cars. Ryan Doucette, who's a part of the Doucette and Doucette show last time out, just avoided contact in the midst of that with the slide from Butler from inside back towards the outside.
In the outside, and again, you hear a lot of contact here. These right rears, we talked about it a number of times this season already, kind of kick out there. Butler not going to try to get back onto the top, and we'll start to see how long the tires can go. It's probably around a lap 30 or 40 or so as there's trouble on the front straightaway.
Thomas Lewandowski and one car riding up on top of another. And the 43 for Petty Enterprises involved in this one. Ken Huff also stacks in. It's Tara Buck, though, who gets the worst of the damage. We're under caution for the first time. Thomas Lewandowski, as mentioned, was in the vicinity and also got spun in the battle for 21st after some 3 wide in front with some drivers off corner exit, looked like Blake.
Well, and that's what's going to happen here in this situation where everybody's going to the top is you're going to have a checkup a little bit up top. We're going to look at it one more time, the 55 there on the bottom. And actually, it's that Alto machine that gets out into the wall, gets loose. And I'm sure that Emily Howe right there with that stack up on the top side just thought that, you know, she wasn't too wide, and unfortunately it was 3 wide right there as she came up the racetrack. A hard lick there for the 43 and the 20 car, which, by the way, remember, fast repair is no longer a thing. We didn't have them last week, and that changed kind of the way some of these drivers had to approach this series. Not having that fast repair in the back pocket can be a pretty big hit as we take one more look on here with Brendan Masivis. See a lot of smoke. Thought he had it clear, and that's just a typical Bristol wreck, right? Came right up the racetrack and just cannot get it stopped on that degrees of banking.
And that puts it under caution for the first time at Bristol Motor Speedway on FTFGG. Has several drivers taken the time to get some repairs done, as well as some tires of note. Amongst them pitting this caution, Brendan McGee, who took 2 tires. Jose Solis Jr. ended up taking 4, as well. Christian Budd came down. Timothy Latham, Lumendowski as expected coming down. Sean Butler has also just came to the pit lane, although he came on the second pace lap and is taking a bit more time to get those tires on to make sure he's able to maximize the amount of tires in said lane. But regardless, 17 laps down already, and McKissik's led them all so far, coming to the end of the 17th lap, in fact.
Going to come around here, and you're not really going to see too many drivers pit here. Obviously, everybody going to stay out, and I think really that's the thing we're going to see throughout the night. I don't know if tire wear is going to be so significant that you're not going to see a lot of drivers really stay out to keep their track position. We still only have about 30 cars on track, 29 on the lead lap right now. But even as we get more towards halfway, I really don't know if you want to go to the back. Worn tires on the top probably beats significantly newer tires if you're going to have to go on the bottom to try and make those passes. So I wouldn't be surprised here if tires, it's going to matter. You're going to want to conserve them to the end, but I don't think you're going to be in a spot where you're thinking about pitting and losing all that track position to try to race your way back up through the field.
And you already see Zach Campbell getting ready for the outside line coming up here for the restart. McKissick, the race leader. Parker Alexander's in second. His best run of the season. He's had several chances to get up to the front. Daytona of note, which led to disaster in some cases. Dylan Roberts in 4th. Marcus Lindsay, Christina Ryan, Peleg, Ryan Doucette, Philip Snipes, Larry Pace, the top 10. 81 laps to go in the Food City 500, iRacing's virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. Keep in mind the green flag, the trigger for these drivers in a WINSTEL sanctioned competition. McKissick looking to hold on with the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup driver to his right. iRacing pace car off. Back and away from Bristol. And this time, Campbell taking advantage of the outside. Waves bye-bye. He's the new race leader.
Boy, yeah, not a great restart there for McKissick. You're not able to get a significant jump as they're going on the green in this league, and I think you can see right there how much being in that top side is going to matter and how everybody funnels to the top. Trouble here in turn number 1. It is once again the 43 of Nick Tarabuck, and once again we will go under the caution flag as he gets spun on the entrance to turn 1, and, well, heck, they were doing a little bit of wrecking before they got to that. I think Ken Huff. No, Brandon Masivis once again, and I think he may have had contact with Sean Butler.
He indeed, I believe, did on the front straightaway, right at the flag stand, in fact. If you take a look, they were 3 wide, just a bit of a graze you'll see off of turn 4 with the 31 started this.
You see a little bit of a tag right there and just not able to save it. Locks up right in front of Sean Butler, so nowhere to go for him. And then, of course, the 43 also, after that, kind of the domino effect, what have you, ends up getting tangled up in that. You can see a little bit of a slide, hooks him in the left rear, and just not able to quite save it before getting tagged. And obviously, you see the 43 get spun around right there.
You remember that car already had to get the TV panel taped back on. We're back under caution as a result. The only driver coming down to the pit lane for a scheduled service, it appears, is Philip Snipes. The others, you're getting wave arounds and or were involved in the caution. Now keep in mind when it comes to Bristol, snow, as mentioned, has been a factor in the area as of late. Qualifying initially had its delay when it came to the snow because of the cold weather. A mix of snow, rain, and sleet, in fact. And for some of the drivers, they had the fun of building snowmen and playing in said snow during the Busch race yesterday in the Sharpie Mini 300. Did you enjoy the snow?
Well, I'm from North Carolina. I barely know what snow is. I know you're from Canada, so I think there's a little bit more snow up there to know what to deal with.
Let's talk about more of the race then, because fuel's going to be a major thought process, Blake. What do you think the mileage will be for tonight? Because Atlanta, of course, at the wrinkle will be a multi-stopper. The fuel limit, as mentioned in the tanks, 35% for the drivers in the tanks, which means based on those numbers, you expect the potential of that possibly again, even for a track like Bristol.
I mean, that's one thing we're having to listen in and see what these drivers are thinking about. I really don't think, especially at a track like Bristol, even if we're kind of near that fuel window, we're going to run a lot of this race probably under caution. It's Bristol, as you know. Again, we're already 25 laps. We're a quarter distance into this race, and we've only been racing for what seems like about 10 minutes. So I don't really think we're going to be in a position, even if we started this race kind of close to that fuel number, I don't really think it's going to be a big concern because, again, you save so much fuel when running under caution here. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue.
Coming up to the restart, and as to be expected, Zach Campbell choosing the outside line with how strong the outside turned out to be last time. Give some shout-outs to some who are charging the weights of the pack, though, because it's a +9 on the restart for Ryan Doucette, +5, make it +9, should say, for Christina Ryan, +10 for Anthony Krobach so far tonight. Once again, Zach Campbell in control of the field after having that phenomenal run just a few weeks ago back at Las Vegas. iRacing pace car is off. Will the bottom line have the better run this time, or will that top prevail still? Green flag waits up at the stand, back underway. And everybody waits to see who wants to go first. The patty cake leads to Campbell still leading.
Campbell taking that top lane, that ended up being the difference because it is so hard to pass there on the bottom. You saw a lot of tire spin on that restart as well. A lot of guys not able to hold on to it, or were kind of easing up into it as they got up through the gears. So tough now. McKissick's able to get to the top side. Unfortunately, Dylan Roberts is not. Christina Ryan there on the high side. Looks like she's going to be able to pass for third at the stripe.
And Christina Ryan, keep in mind, has had some busy racing times when it comes to the virtual world, a part of the eNASCAR College iRacing Series, presented by Nate Star League. And she's also made some waves there, looking to have her best run of the season in WINSTEL Gen 4 Challenge action amongst those trying the top line. Now up to a race-high P3 and trying to find a way to get up to Brandon McKissick, who runs the bottom.
Well, I think this is what you're going to see a lot of the leaders do, that if they can run the bottom, you mentioned it is a little bit better on the tires. If they have the opportunity to run the bottom and not have to worry about somebody passing them on the outside, they're going to do it. So McKissick, obviously, about 8 kart lengths back of Zach Campbell, has a little bit of a lead here on Ryan. But as soon as Christina Ryan gets right up to Brandon McKissick, I think McKissick going to go back to the top. And, of course, Zach Campbell going to try to stay on the bottom, save those tires as long as he can.
Elk, meanwhile, amongst those still trying to keep the top line. Lap traffic ahead will be a bit of a factor here. Leonardo Herrera had to come down during green flag conditions to serve a penalty. As a result of last caution, that forced a bit of 3 wide, in fact, with a couple others. Amongst those trying to take advantage as everyone passes on by, Jose Solis Jr., who was just able to pass by Andy Trupiano with a bit of a squeeze into turn 1.
Able to get on by, and there's some checking up. Saw a little bit of smoke just further up the road. One car to the outside wall off of turn 4. It's directly in front of Trupiano. It's that 95 machine of John Schwartz. Scraped it, but was able to keep it going in the right direction. And this is kind of in that part of the pack, Justin, where there's so much checking up right in that top line. May not necessarily be where you want to be, because you have 10, 15 cars all lined up. You can get checked up, and you can occasionally maybe go down on the bottom and avoid that, but still it is very hard to make anything work. Is now Trupiano going to try to go down there, but lose a spot to Sean M. Butler. And of course up here at the front, the 48 machine making some ground up there. Sean Pellig trying to hold off the 24 machine of Nicholas Doucette.
And Nicholas Doucette having a bit of a rough one so far. The championship points leader entering tonight when it comes to the season 1 victory on the campaign, coming up last round by at Atlanta. Laurie Pace amongst those also moving forward. Keep in mind that Solis Jr., we mentioned the difference in strategies, is still the first driver amongst those who took 4 tires under the previous caution flags and go a little bit longer this run as a result. However, they're still back in 13th behind a good couple rows from drivers like Marcus Lindsay and Larry Pace's side by side still.
And Pace, a long line of cars there up on the top side. Just going to take a while for him to try to find a spot up there to where he can get back up there and stop losing all of these positions. But Doucette, Peleg holding a long line of cars. And what's been interesting, Justin,
Caution.
Keep it for now, is a huge wreck off of turn number 2. A long list of cars in this one. Mauricio, Latham, Bud, Tripiano, Justin Rowden, Thomas Lewandowski. This was around the 20th position, and my goodness, that was a huge accident.
You can even say higher than that because Parker Alexander, Sean Butler end up stacking up into turns 1 and 2. And then you had that battle going on for about 20th then and getting involved. Lewandowski again involved, Trupiano, Christian Budd. Almost every driver who had elected to pit under the previous cautions ends up stacking into this one.
And really, this all started, like you said, with Sean Butler, a little bit of a checkup there. This is what can happen when you have a long line of cars running this close, all on the top side. You can see a little bit of a checkup there. Butler gets into the back of the 2. He gets sideways, locks it down, saves it. But obviously, the other problem running that top side, if you're John Schwartz, it's hard to see anything that's happening about 2 or 3 cars in front of you. So Schwartz not able to get on the binders in time before he gets into the back of the 21. Comes back up the racetrack and obviously creates a parking lot off of turn 2.
Plenty of contenders getting a bit of damage as a result of that one, and several others who were trying to stay out of trouble and were battling for the lucky dog were also involved. Most of the field electing to pit under this caution except for just 3. Jose Solis Jr., Philip Snipes, Ken Huff, who have all had 4 tire stops in the past 20 to 30 laps. We've seen how big the fall-off can be on the short run already, though, with how some of the drivers like Solis Jr. were able to send it hard on the inside. Huff has actually just ducked on in, so just 2 remain who will stay on the old tires, everybody else on freshies.
Well, and a couple of drivers that, may have pit previously in this race, but obviously not going to come down once they got some fresh tires. I mean, we're already halfway through. If you're around that 15th position, you have a little bit fresher tires than some of the drivers that are in front of you. I think you're content to stay out here, not going to have to worry about, saving fuel, any of that. So I think Campbell in a good spot right here, but he's going to, like you said, he's going to have those fresh tires that he's going to have to hold off with along with a couple of other guys. So it's going to be tough to see how it all shakes out.
And that's also the question of how will the 2 tire calls work out, because 3 did as well make that. In fact, 4, one of which were involved in the caution, Emily Howe, Zach Campbell, Sean Peleg, along with Nicholas Doucette, keeping track position by taking 2 tires as well. And we've seen in some cases in the past, 2 tires can work, short run in particular. After about 20-30 laps, you better hold on for dear life.
We're going to see if that's the case here, because, again, if we get green runs, that's certainly going to be a factor. But how many stack-ups are we going to have guys on fresh tires trying to pass guys on old tires? Is that going to work? That's what we're going to have to see. If we can keep this green, I like where some of these drivers may be that have fresher tires. But if we continue to have some yellows that take up 4, 5, 6 laps at a time, I really like the track position calls here by our front group. But that's what we'll have to see how it shakes out.
By the way, the first on 4 fresh tires right now, Brandon McKissick, followed by Christina Ryan. They're about 6th and 7th position for the restart. The Joe Gibbs Racing Machine of Jose Solis Jr. in control of the field. The inside is the Roush Machine. The 99 tries to keep up on the start. Jose Solis Jr. keeps the top line. We're back underway. And it's 3 wide for the race lead. Campbell shoots it up the middle. Trying to keep it 3 as Philip Snipes backs up. But the caution is out behind him. 15th on back, crashing again. And they're still crashing.
15th on back is where it started. Another secondary wreck here with John Schwartz. But again, that is right around that position where some drivers that came in are going to be on those old tires. And it looked like the 29, Justin Rowden, got really close to the wall, had to check up, got a little bit loose on those cold tires after we were pacing around for a little bit, and just lost it on the straightaway, noses it in the wall, and creates that entire situation. We'll see another angle here, the 21, who's able to get by it relatively smooth. But Justin Rowden, you're going to see here into turn number 2, going to fishtail it a little bit off the corner, right there, overcorrects, and obviously nowhere for the 31 to go, and creates another wreck. And that was, again, completely separate from what we saw up front after the caution flag had already waved.
This has been a nightmarish season for Justin Rowden, to say the very least. Let's take a look, though, at this was how the race lead was going. Zach Campbell said, you know what? I've got fresher tires. I'm going for it. And they actually bounced off the walls coming to the caution trigger.
Well, Justin, this is Bristol. I mean, there's really nothing other to say that this is how this race is going to go. We've seen a lot of wrecks early on in the season at a lot of different mile-and-a-halves. But this is Bristol. Things happen so quickly here, especially at this Bristol, which is somewhat separate from the 2006 version of the track that you see guys kind of favoring the middle or the top side of the racetrack. Obviously, that wasn't the case back in 2006, a little bit different. But it doesn't change how quickly things happen here, how quickly things can change. You mentioned lap traffic a little bit earlier. If we can get long green flag runs, that'll obviously be a concern for these drivers. But yeah, things happen very, very quickly here, especially with these cold temperatures clicking off about 14.7, 14.8s that I've seen a couple of times out there. So they are absolutely flying around this racetrack.
It's going to be very intriguing how things play out from this point, especially with some of the cautions getting us to halfway already, and the battle for the race lead really intensifying. Zach Campbell already wants the race lead, and we haven't gotten the 1-to-go signal yet. Keep that in mind with how much he wants to win again in this series. But I'm really intrigued to see as well, amongst those trying to find their way forward, how drivers like Pellick will handle, because he took a pretty hard lick to the outside wall. And keep in mind, when it came to the real-world edition of the 2006 Food City 500, that 48 machine took a lot of fender damage in the opening laps and had to pit under green to pull the fenders back.
And heck, it may have to pull the fenders back again on that 19, as he was nearly into the wall trying to convince Jose to not take the top side on the restart. Unfortunately, that little contact with the wall is going to be in vain, as Solis going to choose the top side as well as anybody, I think, is going to for the rest of the race. Again, it'd be one thing if you had that huge jump sometimes that we see in iRacing, the pace car dives off and you're able to restart kind of whenever you please. You can make the bottom work, but with the fact that we go on green in this league, you're going to be side by side going into one, and if you're the leader, you definitely want to be on that top side.
We've seen how hard Zach Campbell is willing to push, though, for the race lead already, based on the last restart. How will this one go? The chase for the WINSTEL Cup continues, past halfway at Bristol, 48 laps to go, and back underway. Solis Jr. with a good launch on the outside, but Zach Campbell still on the fresher tires. Pulls himself to the race lead, can't get clear yet as they're 2x2 behind.
2x2, and again, that's going to be a move where Campbell, if he had completed it, he'd have control of the lead. No, Larry Pace around in the middle of the pack. It's on the apron, and we have another spinner.
And it's Christina Ryan. Christina Ryan.
Saves it. What an amazing
save. The pack taking her 3 wide, and we're still green despite the 2 spins. Larry Pace, tail into the lead lap as a result, is still going. But for the race lead, Solis Jr., he's back single file and looking to pull away from Zach Campbell on the older rubber while they battle 3 wide behind again. Pellick nearly to the quarter panel of McKissick.
And again, 3 wide, that's where you're really going to see the top side of the racetrack be favorable there. And Ryan Doucette able to do just that in the 7. McKissick has to slot back up in 5th. But a solid job there. Again, 3 wide here, very tough to make happen. But if it does, I think you're really going to favor that driver that's on the top side being able to put the throttle down and carry that momentum off the corner.
In this case, Dylan Roberts, that respective driver, looking to clear on by, and does as Holzer squeezes his way in as well. Up 7 spots from his qualifying position, make it +8 with the run past the Hendrick Motorsport Chevrolet to the inside still by the time they get to the start and finish line. That race lead, by the way, we mentioned that was growing. That's kind of evaporated the exact opposite way because Campbell's ready to fight again. He's brought Nicholas Doucette with him.
Brought him along for the battle, and again, Doucette, somebody who has had a lot of early success in this series. I know it seems like every week we've been able to talk to a Doucette, whether it's Ryan, whether it's Nick, it doesn't seem to matter. Nick's kind of gotten the better end of it so far, but 3 cars up here under a blanket, and as you see, Solis Jr. running the bottom has gone to the top side with Zach Campbell right on his toes, and Nicholas Doucette looking to pounce as well. Ryan Doucette, however, for 4th, going to be running the bottom, try to save those tires a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to how patient do these guys ride in line, and when do they try to make a move, because again, laps ticking off quickly. We're already under 40 to go.
And don't forget, when it comes to Ryan Doucette in particular, his specialty, short track racing. This is where he usually performs at the best in the virtual world. He still runs the bottom with McKissick following suit behind in the battle going on for 4th. The race leaders, though, getting very close to scraping the walls and bottoming the car out. Plenty of sparks kicking up from several of these drivers trying to run this top line. No one wanting to give an inch and allow anyone to get the run to the edge of their quarter panel and rip them off the wall. One driver's trying to rip drivers from the bottom side. That's Sean Butler, who's managed to power his way back up towards the edge of the top 10 again.
Well, again, it's been effective because Butler has that tire advantage, but eventually that advantage continues to go away as we click off more laps, and I just don't know how much it's going to work. Again, if we had a slicker racetrack right now, as you see the 18 kind of gets stuck into the wall, it's Anthony Kroback who gets stuck up there. If it was a situation where we had really hot temperatures and a slick racetrack, I think that bottom would be a little bit better, but the temperatures are just so cool. You're going so fast around this place that it really helps to get to the top, although you see the sun starting to poke out. Track temperatures picked up about 8 degrees since the drop of the green flag, so that bottom may start to come into play as you see Jose Solis Jr. change for the lead.
To the race lead again goes Zach Campbell. Solis Jr. loses the top line. Campbell was able to do exactly what was mentioned, rip the wall away, but he did so by riding the wall, Blake, and that could be borderline.
It could be borderline, but nevertheless, Zach Campbell up front. McKissick going to fall back, and Jose Solis Jr. now in a really, really tough position. Has a long line of cars taking advantage of his FedEx Express Chevrolet there on the bottom side of the racetrack. He's going to fall from the lead all the way back to the 8th position, so a long sink there for Jose Solis Jr. And now the attention turns to Nick Doucette. What can he do to try to get around Zach Campbell?
This was the battle, remember, back at Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400. It came down to a drag race that day. It also came down to a drag race between these two at Daytona in the Daytona 500. Well, we see the third part of that electric boogaloo. Try and sort itself out in 20 laps. We'll have to wait and see. Keep in mind, Solis Jr., he's falling off and then some. The older tires are coming up to the end of their run possibly. And remember, he's only pit once. Is he going to be able to make it to the end on gas is the big question too.
I think at this point, if you're not going to make it to the end on gas, you just have to go full out and hope that there's a caution, and it is getting pretty good up here. Brandon McKissick, those last couple of laps, has slowly made up ground lap by lap on this lead pack that's running the top of the racetrack, and McKissick, a nice diamond off the corner, not necessarily running the bottom, kind of going to the middle and taking a nice diamond line, and slowly but surely he has been making up ground on this group for the top, and he may have had the lead when the caution came out.
We'll see where the scoring loops fly, but the caution is out because Timothy Latham for Penske Racing involved in a stack-up with Christian Budd, one of the top drivers in the standings, who's had a rough one tonight for Roush Racing.
Well, he gets stacked up, and at the exact same time, it was simultaneous. You had contact further ahead between Marcus Lindsay, Gabriel Mauricio. So you had really kind of two. Again, we've seen this a number of times, two separate incidents. And I mean, Mauricio in the 17, you could not. They spun at the exact same time. I mean, it was almost amazing on the replay. You can both see them kick sideways at the exact same time. Look at the 31. Look at the 17. You see obviously on your screen there Christian Budd in the 17 getting spun there in that Matt Kenseth lookalike. But the 31 just ahead of him, a totally separate issue, was in the middle 3 wide and looked like a little bit of a hop there out of the rear end of his car. And both of them spin into turn 1 at the exact same time.
You also see, indeed, Mauricio significant damage to the point where that breaks the right front tire. Likely the 31's day could be done. And indeed in the pit stall, getting some service done to see if they can find a way to magically get that tire to stay on. 23 laps to go. This does help the 11 machine make it to the end on gas. But unfortunately for Solis Jr., he needed that caution about 5 laps ago based on the trends. But we're back where we started with Brandon McKissick in the race lead with under a quarter of the race to go. And he, Campbell, Nicholas Doucette, Dylan Roberts, James Holzer, Parker Alexander, Sean Butler, Sean Pellig, Anthony Krobach, and Philip Snipes, along with John Schwartz and Christina Ryan and Alex Bates, all stayed out for this late race caution.
Again, not a lot of time, 20 laps, and again, that's if we all get all those laps under green. We do have one potential green-white checkered, one attempt at overtime that we've been running in this league, so not necessarily going to go 6 or 8 laps further than the scheduled distance. But I think at this point you got to take that track position pitting, and this time, unless you have damage or something that's really wrong with the car, a lot of damage, it's just not going to be worth it to pit at this point.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, next time out, we head to the Lone Star Stake, Texas Motor Speedway for the Samsung Radio Shack 500, 8 p.m. Eastern Time start time scheduled. For what's going to be an intriguing one, it's the 3rd intermediate of the season. In fact, the rest of the season all finishes in those tracks with that category, with Texas, Darlington, Charlotte to determine the Season 1 champion.
Should be exciting. I know Texas is, that's a racetrack that I have loved to run on this service, especially Legacy Texas. Used to race so amazing in these cars. I'm sure it'll put on a good show next week. That's one of my favorite combos on the service, that Legacy version of Texas.
Yep.
Can use the bottom, run all over the racetrack, and especially when those cars had the nationwide horsepower in these things. A lot of fun there at Texas, so I think it'll be a pretty good race next week.
Keep in mind, as just seen, if you like the old style racing, you'll also love to see the new style with the next-gen cars coming up next for the FDF Cup Series. Green flag is back out. Brandon McKissick, with a lot of tire spin, holds on to the race lead. Zach Campbell trying to keep the pressure up behind, as well as Dylan Roberts, who now goes for the battle for second, near contact at the door of the 19.
Roberts going to try to go up the racetrack and going to be able to make that move stick for second.
James Holzer is spun in the back. Holzer to the inside wall. No caution. We stay green. He tries to get it going for the battle for the race lead, though. They go back to the top line now. Top 4, choo-choo around the top.
And now Roberts has to play his cards right. We saw a little bit of weakness out of some of these drivers, and another spin, another caution flag. Once again into turn number 1, and once again, Brandon Monsivas looks to be the victim here and got a little bit loose, and I think had a little bit of contact to finally finish him off from Timothy Latham. But for the most part, looked like just side swiped it a little bit off of the corner, fishtailed it, whatever you want to call it, and unfortunately got spun out.
Let's take a look at a few of the different incidents. First, you have Holzer, who gets helped a bit with the caution coming now, but you see the reason? A little bit of a touch from Sean Pellig.
That was the initial one, and again, did not put us under the caution flag because he was underneath the apron. But just a lap later, the Home Depot machine, you can see off of the corner, running close to the top 10, and yeah, no contact necessary there. Just a little bit of an overcorrect after getting just a bit sideways. We've seen that a number of times already off of turn number 2 and off of turn number 4, where you really just kind of lose the nose of the car. Very difficult, as you see Dylan Roberts here trying to work through traffic and get up to the race lead.
You see how
see the hands working in that race car.
Speaking of that, for comparison with the 20 of Monsalves, if you look towards that entry and exit through turn 4, look at the quick flick of the wheel towards the right, and you'll see why there was that quick response to the wall. That's a lot of bouncing in the first place.
And see how, again, how quickly he lost that car. Before he knew it, he was already having to correct and try to get it straightened out. And, I mean, he corrected that thing almost like a next-gen car, just overcorrected very, very quickly with it.
As referred to, the kick in the tires 200K is at the Circuit of the Americas in the next-gen era of stock car racing. That's the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series coming up 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to tune in on FTF GG to see which of your favorite drivers can make it around the gigantic circuit in Texas. 14 laps to go. And right now it's McKissick in the race lead. But with the caution, guess which drivers are coming in quickly? The drivers who pit under the last caution, they're up to as high as 7th now. Sean Butler is leading that charge, and he has been bounced around like a pinball all night long. He has a chance, as well as a few of the others now, as you see McGee trying to run towards the bottom groove with the 2-tire call as well.
Well, I'd love the position that some of these drivers were in if they were on the top side. I feel like being on the bottom. Again, shout out to Butler because he's kind of driven his way through this field amidst missing a couple of accidents, but it can be really tough to try and get up to that top side. And again, we're looking at 10 laps to go here, so you're talking about a couple of minutes of green flag action. This race is going to be over, so you have to be very quick if you're going to be able to get to the top side and make that ground up.
It's McGee and Roberts. Watching around, rather, McKissick and Roberts battling it about for the race lead. Alexander, Nicholas Doucette, Zach Campbell, Sean Pellig, Sean Butler, Philip Snipes amongst the top 8 drivers for the restart. iRacing pace car off with 13 to go in the Food City 500. Green flags back out. No major tire spin this restart. Roberts keeps it equal, in fact, as he tries to wrap the bottom for the race lead.
And Campbell and the 48 got a little bit together with Sean Pellig. That's going to allow Butler to get up to the top side. Roberts into the race lead, but McKissick going to try to cross him over off of 4. And Roberts into the wall. That's going to lose him a couple of positions, and a caution flag for a spin in the back. About 4 or 5 cars here on the front straightaway.
Everybody's stacking up again. How about offset 4 wide to bring us under caution? Mauricio was right in the thick of it, as well as Thomas Lewandowski. And the Wood Brothers Racing spotters for John Prather along with Derek Wood. Very busy tonight for the 21, we'll say.
Very, very busy indeed. He was on the bottom 3 wide, and again on these restarts we've seen this a number of times on those cold tires. Drivers just get really loose. And you're going to see it right there. The 12 into the fence, but a little bit of a reaction there from Lewandowski, who got a little bit sideways, corrects it just a bit, but unfortunately 3 wide here at Bristol. Going to get up into the car above you, and unfortunately for him, that was the number 31 of Gabriel Mauricio, who has been in a number of accidents so far. Nowhere to go there for Timothy Latham. And there you have it, another large accident here at Bristol.
It's very difficult to stay clean in a short track. And even when you get out of the incident, you might get back into it, in the case of Derbuck right there. But now we're back under caution, and that reduced the amount of laps as well. It looks like wave will be needed for the 21, in fact, with the amount of time lost. But now, with things stacking up there, Just about everybody who had previously had fresher tires with those stacks was referred to, they lost a little bit of ground there. Some of them, in fact, shuffled as far back as 10th as a result of some of the battling.
Well, and that's been the case that if you're battling back here, we've seen a lot of single file up here at the front, guys kind of being able to choose the lane that they get into. But you have to be able to use all of the racetrack to run these blazing fast last times that they're running up here. So as soon as you get back in traffic, you don't have a little bit to cut down, or you don't have enough on exit. If you're running the bottom side, the time difference here is pretty drastically different when you're single file versus when you're side by side. And I've seen a lot of single file up front, but if you're in the back, obviously you're losing a lot of time, either having somebody to your outside or your inside.
Keep in mind, there are still 28 cars, if you include Lewandowski, who will get the wave when the lights go out on the lead lap. This race could go any direction with what we've seen in the past at Bristol, where in some cases, we've seen incidents bring the entire field into the mix for crashes. Sometimes that number upwards of 20 drivers at once. We've avoided the massive one tonight from Bristol, but that's got to be on people's minds entering the final 6 laps, looking like a 5-lap shootout from this point.
Not a lot of time to get it done. Only 5 laps, Justin. And I mean, will we see Nicholas Doucette, who time and time again has put himself in some great positions to win these races. McKissick has looked like he was down and out there for a little bit, has found a way to stick around. He's going to choose the top here, so he's in obviously the best position out of all of these drivers to try to go to victory lane. But we have this is kind of what it's all come down to. We've seen a lot of names up here at the front of the field time and time again. Doucette, Roberts, Zach Campbell. You throw Sean Butler into that mix as well. He's starting outside 3rd row. He's got a shot at it, but again, 5 laps to go here. Could go quickly, or maybe we have a little more racing in store.
Lewandowski's claimed the last caution. That gave him an EOL penalty. As a result, he was not able to get the wave. 27 on the lead lap for the final 5 laps of the Food City 500. McKissick and Nicholas Doucette on the front row. Backing away from Bristol. Good restart from the front row drivers. McKissick tries to hold on. Doucette tries to slide his way to the point, looking for his first lead of the night in the 24. A better run from McKissick up top, though, to hold on to the lead.
And Nicholas Doucette just not able to put the power down on exit. 4 to go. What can he build back as McKissick will ride the middle and looks to make about a car length up off of the first set of corners.
Butler still charging ahead in the battle now for 4th position. 3 to go. Meanwhile, Doucette needs to find a way to reel in 0.3 of a second. They're crashing big behind him. There's the massive one. 10+ drivers stack up in turns 1 and 2. And that will mean a green-white checker to end it. Oh boy, it's about to get busy.
Trying to see initially where all of this started, but again, another massive accident. We will have overtime as a result of that, and I'm looking at around Anthony Krobach and Ryan Doucette is kind of around where that all started. You're going to see the 48 check up here off of turn 4. Krobach gets a little out of line, and Doucette, again, a couple of laps left, not lifting, and getting right reared in turn 1 at Bristol means if you have a long line of cars behind you, going to be a lot of drivers involved in that. And like you said, so many names that have just had some really rotten luck in this one. Tarabek, Timothy Latham, just so many drivers who have had a lot of issues. You see the 5 there of Alex Bates involved. The 29 is into the outside retaining wall of Justin Rada once again. So a lot of names, Justin, that have had really long nights, to say the least.
Here's the look from Bates. And Justin Rodden even in the midst of that again. Some drivers just not finding too much luck at all when it comes to their trip to Bristol, Tennessee. But here's how this works for the final restart of the night. We're past point of no return, which means once the green flag flies, even if there's an incident with the 2 to go lap around, there will not be a caution that would bring the field under said yellow to end the race. The field must end under green, and we have only the one attempt to do so, meaning all it takes, 2 laps, 30 seconds, and you can win the Food City 500.
2 laps is all it takes, like you said. But Brandon McKissick, again, he's just got to put together a handful of good corners. If he doesn't make any mistakes, it's going to be really tough for Doucette, Alexander, or even Butler, who has moved forward, gained 2 spots over the course of that last restart that we had. So Butler now top of row number 2. He's got a chance, but again, 2 laps is just not a lot of time to get it done. Only 1 attempt at overtime. May have to rely on the bump and run here to play a factor, but again, it's 2006. We saw that play a factor. Kurt Busch ended up winning, kind of given a shove. He ended up winning that race, and then, of course, the well-publicized Matt Kenseth, Jeff Gordon skirmish came in 2006 at that same race, so maybe these guys kind of channel that inner history here at this track and put on a good show to the end. I mean, heck, we just saw it in the Cup Series race, too. Ross Chastain was going to send A.J. Allmendinger out of the state of Texas there on the last corner.
That's an understatement, as we're about to get ready for this restart. Again, it comes down to a point of no return restart. 2 laps to go in the 2006 edition of the Food City 500. McKissick and Nicholas Doucette, Parker Alexander and Sean Butler, Robertson Campbell, Ryan and McGee, Snipes and Bud, the top 10. Who will take home the victory in Bristol? Let's find out. Pace car off. McKissick ready for the gears. Doucette ready for the gears. 2 laps to go in the Food City 500. A great launch for Nicholas Doucette. He squeezes McKissick. Nicholas Doucette with a slider takes the lead with 1.5 laps to go.
A horrible restart for Parker Alexander. It's really going to make this a 3-horse race, but white flag in the air for Nicholas Doucette, who has the lead heading into 1.
Nicholas Doucette needs to hold on for 1 more set of corners, but McKissick wants the win. McKissick's led 47. Will he go for the bumper? No, he's not looking yet. He's trying it now. Nicholas Doucette holds on to win the Food City 500 at Bristol. Nicholas Doucette, Brandon McKissick, Sean Butler, the top 3. What a finish. Nicholas Doucette just 3 laps led to end the night after starting in 20th position.
And what a late race restart. We had not seen the bottom work pretty much at all the whole night. And right when it counts, Doucette got a fantastic launch and got just enough through 1 and 2, using that shorter line around when the cars weren't up to speed to get up to clear McKissick. And then Brandon was not able to do anything. So a fantastic launch there for Nicholas Doucette, who will be victorious once again in the chase for the WINSTEL Cup.
And he becomes the first multi-race winner of 2006. And it always seems to come in the phenomenal fashions, as we've seen the past 2 rounds. Atlanta and Bristol. Go to Hendrick Motorsports and the DuPont Chevrolet Monte Carlo. The celebration's on after the victory, but it's Nicholas Doucette who comes away with the victory. The difference, 0.093 seconds. Brandon McKissick, his best run of the season, finishes in 2nd, while Sean Butler rounds out the top 3 for the podium. Parker Alexander finished in 4th, one of his best runs of the year. Same can be said for Brendan McGee, who finished where he started in 5th with a 2-tire call. Dylan Roberts in 6th, Zach Campbell in 7th, Christina Ryan, a huge shout out to her, charged up after her spin later on in the race to finish back in 8th. Christian Budd, after being involved in a couple incidents, finishes in 9th. And Philip Snipes rounds out the top 10 this evening.
It does, and Sean Pellig, again, track position is key, so key. 7 if your top 11 finishers starting in the top 10. Pellig started 7th. He finishes up in the 11th position. Andy Trupiano in 12th. Anthony Kroback recovered nicely after a late spin to finish in 13th. Jose Solis Jr., he led some laps in this one. He finishes up in the 14th spot. Justin Rowden, 15th. Marcus Lindsay, 16th. A great start, but not a great finish for Larry Pace. I'm sure he'll be wanting more after finishing in 17th. Gabriel Mauricio in 18th. 19th to Alex Bates. And Brendan Monsivas probably had the worst night out of anybody as far as spins are concerned, but he brings it home still in the 20th spot.
James Holzer 21st, Timothy Latham 22nd, with Derbach, Ryan Doucette, John Schwartz, Thomas Lewandowski, Ken Hoff, Hayden Ripas, along with Alex Kolonix, Leandro Moreira, and Emily Howe, the 31 drivers who took the green tonight. One thing to majorly note, an end of longest line penalty has been served to Brandon McKissick for failing to maintain pace speed as the leader on the restart. That means he'll go to the tail end of the longest line on the pylon, and that means Butler finishes second officially for now, Alexander up to third, and a big shuffling of the order. But one thing still stays the same. It's Nicholas Doucette who takes the victory here in tonight's action, and as things get ready to head over to Cup Series competition, let's bring in your race winner for WINSTEL action. Nicholas Doucette, back-to-back race winner in the WINSTEL circuit. Talk us through the final couple laps as you went to clear Brandon McKissick for the win.
First of all, that was what a race. I really didn't think I had anything. I thought I was going to be out of this race by lap 10, starting back in 20th. Passing here is just so tough. But no, those final few restarts, I made the joke just as the race ended. There was like some Formula One type stuff going there on those final restarts with some mind games and hitting the throttle, getting back off the throttle. It was wild. I knew my car could turn on the bottom very well, so I wasn't too worried about restarting on the bottom there. And then, yeah, on that final restart, I was just able to get in front of McKissick off of turn 2 and hold him off.
And that got you the win on track in turn as well. But it also took a lot of time to get yourself into this position. Just 3 laps led on the entire night on the board, and 2 of them came on that final restart. Talk through your progression through the pack tonight to try and keep yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, I knew I had to try to be calm and patient. Those plenty of opportunities where I wanted to dive it to the bottom and try to make a move, but I knew that it would end up not working to my advantage. I just had to try to stay calm and slowly pick them off one by one on the high side. And then when I got up to the front, I could possibly try to make a few moves here and there. But what really helped though was the one and only pit stop we made there on like lap 35 or something around there. And I took the 2 tires and it gained me a couple extra spots in the track position. But no, that was I really didn't think by starting 20th I was going to even be a factor in this race. We had some really great green flag runs. Not as many cautions as I expected, I'll be honest with you, but again, another great performance put on by everyone, all these drivers here in WINSTEL. That was a great race.
Next time out, Texas Motor Speedway, and we're going to see which drivers are most comfortable with the Texas two-step. Your opinions on Texas Motor Speedway. Keep in mind, this is the time-present Texas when it comes to 2006 era.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a lot like Atlanta raced. It's been a while since we ran a test there, but if I remember right, I feel like it's going to be that same type of looseness. Maybe not as extreme, but it's definitely going to be loose. Hopefully a couple lanes there will work. Some multi-groove racing will happen, but I'm expecting, I might go on a limb here and say maybe another caution-free race.
Who do you want to thank for getting yourself to victory lane tonight in that number 24?
Well, I got to thank Matt Kenseth for not punting me like he did in 2006. I don't have to go approach him with my helmet on tonight. Thanks to WINSTEL once again for putting all this on. It's been a blast so far. I didn't think I'd be able to do as well as I have been here in this opening mini season. Yeah, so thanks to them, and thanks once again for you guys for broadcasting this to everyone here watching.
Once again, Nicholas Doucette, the first multi-race winner of the season. He wins the Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway. With the shuffling in with the EOL should say, for Brad McKissick, that shuffles a very popular figure to second. Blake McCandless is with the fan favorite, who's been known for making it around tracks with one fresh tire available, and how he'd repair a car after some rough moments in Atlanta. It's Sean Butler, who powers his way to P2.
And I've caught up with Sean Butler. And Sean, first question for you: how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Blake. After a solid race, seems like the broadcast was very solid too for you guys. How are you this evening?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you, Sean. But nevertheless, you kind of had a tumultuous night. You started up front, got put in the back early on, through a little bit of strategy. And how was it trying to claw your way back up through the field? Because you basically ran all the way from about 25th to where you are now, where you're finishing in the second position.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to pit earlier than everybody else did, and maybe kind of, catch everybody, on strategy to get back up there. If they all pit, I would just stay out with a little bit of older tires, but good enough. But that didn't work out. They just kept wrecking. But it was in time, as you guys saw, the top lane was extremely dominant the whole race, and it was so hard to pass. You had to time everything perfectly, and I got stuck on the bottom in the restarts most of the time, and it was tough. But I had to avoid a few wrecks to get up there, and got into a little bit of trouble myself getting up there. But overall, I was able to keep the car relatively clean and try to put myself in the best position at the end, and that was the goal. And I think I did a pretty good job of it. I'll take P2, no problem.
Well, I know we're going to Texas Motor Speedway next week, and with that, Sean, I want to ask you, what do you think about the Mets this year?
I mean, they pitched Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer today, so I mean I don't know why they did that, but that was interesting to see. But they're like they've been the last couple of years. They're good on paper, but they still got to play the games. So I'm not gonna. I'm hoping they do well, of course, but I don't know. We just got to wait and see. They're such an up and down team. I just want them to situationally hit, and they should be okay.
Well, anything else you want to add about your run P2 here tonight, Sean?
No, I mean, you guys pretty much saw it. Congratulations to the two up front there for the clean race. I was hoping they would kind of get into each other. I was trying to lay back on the restart a little bit there, but they raced each other clean, which is what we want to see for the win. So props to those guys, and thank you to everybody in the league for putting this on. I know it was a frustrating night for the admins, to say the least, all the cautions, and of course to you guys for putting on the broadcast. Stay tuned, everybody. We got FTF coming up at COTA. That's going to be fantastic. So keep it locked here on FTF_GG. But thanks to you guys for always putting on a great broadcast, for sure.
Well, Sean, we appreciate it. He comes home in second tonight, and with that disqualification, again, these results unofficial at the time, I was going to say we were going to talk to Parker Alexander, but it looks like he's not available at the moment right now. Justin?
Once again, I'd like to thank Nicholas Doucette, Sean Butler, for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage. And before things transition to the second part of what is a busy doubleheader of racing action on FTFGG tonight for the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series, your opinion on the WINSTEL Gen 4 Challenge for the 2006 edition of the Food City 500.
Well, I think the one thing we're seeing is a trend here about these drivers that are really able to carve their way through the field. I mean, Nicholas Doucette, second-time winner, started all the way back in 20th, really had no business being up at the front. We heard from Sean, and I'm sure many others would agree with him, how tough it was to time your moves, to pass, to get in the proper position, but yet he's done it time and time again at different racetracks. Obviously, at Bristol tonight, we were at a number of different tracks, and he was able to do the same thing. So I think Nicholas Doucette coming out and kind of making a statement tonight that the rest of this chase for the WINSTEL Cup, he's going to be one that we're going to have to keep our eye on, even if he's not starting up front in the field.
It's going to be intriguing to see how things play out once we go to Texas. But for now, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, it's the next-gen cars for the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series to see which drivers can handle the Circuit of the Americas. Stand by. You're watching FTF GG.
to take back the throne. Are you with me?
You don't have to. No, you don't have
words again. Oh no, and you don't have to. You don't have to go and explain yourself, 'cause I ain't gonna listen. Yeah, all you wanted was a souvenir to remember it all. Yeah, you tore it apart, down to every last piece. Yeah, a souvenir, another story to tell. And I gotta know how to find happiness in the wrong place. 'Cause it never ends, it's there in all ways. It's evident you never change for our sake. We're falling now. Your little black book ran out of pages. Take it all and baby, don't waste it. You only want it if you know you're gon' break it. Just another souvenir for the take, yeah.
Just take it. Baby, just take it.
No, you don't have to say those words again. Oh no, and you don't have to. No, you don't have to go and explain yourself, 'cause I ain't gonna listen. Yeah, all you wanted was a souvenir to remember the fall. To go and tell your friends you were there for it all. A souvenir, just a little postcard for the road. And I just gotta know how to find happiness in the wrong place. 'Cause it never ends, it's there in all ways. It's evident you never change for our sake. We're falling now. Your little black book ran out of pages. 'Cause if you're gonna take it all, then baby, don't waste it. You only want it if you know you're gon' break it. Just another souvenir for the take, yeah.
Just take it. Baby, just take it.
Just another souvenir for the road. That's the way it goes.
Just take it. Baby, just take it.
is not over. The dawn's not that far away. Hop back on the saddle soon, you soulless soldier. The dark can consume your brain. All we ever wanted was a little air to breathe, but all we got are ashes of our old memories. They can try to take me down, but they can't take me to my knees. No, you'll never take me. Not my choice, but it's my blood to bleed. I'm fading. Heed the words I say to you before I will fade away. I need to know what you can do. Show them the only way. All we ever wanted was a little air to breathe, but all we got are ashes of our old memories. They can try to take me down, but they can't take me to my knees. No, you'll never take me. Not my choice, but it's my blood to bleed. I'm fading. It gets a little bit harder now. I just want it to be easy for you and me. Easy for you and me. Harder now. It gets a little bit harder now. I just want it to be easy for you and me. Easy for you and me.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to FTFGG's coverage of the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series here from the virtual circuit of the Americas on iRacing. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside me the booth for tonight's action is Caleb Hoffman with our producer, Zach Johnson. Drivers are in the midst of getting themselves to the racetrack for tonight's action. We'll be taking the time to speak with some of the drivers this evening taking part in this year's running of the Kicking the Tires 200K from COTA. First things first, let's talk to one of the drivers who has had some stellar runs as of late. Connor Horn will be starting from the mid-pack for today's action. He's tentatively qualified 18th, is on camera with us now. Connor, coming from the middle of the field this evening, how are you feeling for Circuit of the Americas?
Speed-wise, I feel like it's the fastest I've been. Just haven't been able to qualify well. Didn't qualify at all last week, and I didn't really run much A-Fix, so I didn't really know how the car would react. I got into practice as early as I could and had some speed. Not race-winning speed, maybe a couple seconds off. But I think if I can survive and just keep all four corners of the car on it, I get a good finish. I feel like I have speed. It's just about being methodical about all the moves you make. It's a tricky track to go through here. Double wide, so I know the initial start and the restarts are going to be crazy, and it's going to be very easy to get caught up in something. So you can just avoid everything and keep your car clean and just make passes in smart places. I feel like I can get a decent finish.
Indeed, your best finish coming into tonight, for reference, Las Vegas back on March the 5th, and we've seen how crazy that finish could get there. But in your opinion, what will be the strategy that could get you to victory tonight? Because it's a stacked field of competitors, but a wide spread of qualifying. The top 35 was separated by about 5 seconds this evening.
Track position's still going to be pretty huge. You have to position yourself at the right place at the right time. I'm not completely sure how the stage is going to work, but you want to position yourself right. You don't want to pit at a place where you're going to be sent to the back and lose all your track position, because more likely than not, you're not going to make that back up in a short amount of time, and you could easily get caught up in something. So just, you got to keep it clean. You got to make the right moves at the right time. When you do have to pit for tires, be prepared to do that. You don't really want to be left on your own strategy. You kind of have to group yourself with others and just prioritize track position for the most part the entire time.
Real quickly, before we let you get to warm-ups for tonight's action, drivers now starting to enter the circuit. Anything else you'd like fans to know from your perspective for tonight's action from your machine?
Bernie Lytics on the hood. It's Bernie Breakdowns now. They changed a little bit, so I got to get the scheme updated, but go check them out. Their podcasts are pretty fun, give good analysis on NASCAR fantasy and all that type of stuff. Martin Sports, appreciate them jumping on. Smith Sim Racing, getting me to the point where I am in Road to Pro. My teammate Landon Mills, he should be fun to watch in a 125 as well. And it's going to be a wild one. You're going to have to watch these starts and restarts in turn one, because it's going to be even more hectic than what the NASCAR races were this week. So it should be pretty exciting.
Once again, that's Connor Horn starting from the midfield for tonight's action. Tentatively qualified 18th. And as you see, drivers are currently warming up. Amongst the drivers who had one of the best qualifying runs of the season, Alex Kalanick now jumps into the broadcast booth. He's standing by with Caleb. He'll help also talk through the track since he is on circuit.
Yeah, Alex, we're seeing you right now in warm-ups. Had a few different variables coming into tonight. First off, had a group qualifying session, which is pretty unprecedented so far from what we've seen this season. How was that a kind of a shakeup of things?
Well, it was nice for me because I pretty much just waited for everybody else to get out on circuit. Pretty much watched the first guy to come out and waited till he got to about the stadium section that I'm entering right now, and then I went out my lap. Had nobody near me, so unlike a lot of the guys who may have struggled to set a good lap, I had nobody in front of me and just had a bunch of clean space. So I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kind of a new introduction of staged cautions for road courses. Obviously, this is the first road course we visited all season. How do you think that's going to, shake things up strategy-wise from what we've seen all year?
Well, I guess similar to real life, you're pretty much just going to be watching that some of the guys who might want to try and win the race will just come in prior to the stage caution, but guys who need points, kind of in my case, might just stay out for the stage wins and stage points. But unlike real life, there seems to be a good bit of fall off the first few laps, so you'll see guys on newer tires make up a lot of spots for about 2 laps, and then it'll start to even out. So I'm definitely going to be watching that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've had some, pretty high highs and some also pretty low lows so far this season. Coming into tonight, what's the main goal for this 22?
Well, survive. That's been the biggest problem for me so far this season. I've had some good speed. Vegas was a notable one. And while I wasn't able to show it at Atlanta after an early wreck, I know I had good speed at that track. So it's just a matter of trying to avoid damage. And here, where it's very, very messy and it's very hard to drive, it's going to be a good place to try and get my season started. And starting further up towards the front is going to help out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. One final note before we let you go. Seeing you just now come through the S's, what are, the main passing zones that you're looking to attack tonight?
Well, we saw a lot of guys pass down here in a turn 11 in the real race today, but I think it's a little bit too difficult with the setup that we've got to really get around turn 10 and get the power down to do that. But definitely coming down here to turn 12 after this back straight, this is going to be a big, big passing zone. And then the double left-hander is going to be a good spot to just shoot it underneath people. I think other than this corner here, turn 1 is going to be another spot you're going to want to look at.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck tonight. Hopefully we'll be interviewing you after the race.
All right, I hope so too.
Alex Kolonix once again making his way around the racetrack during final warm-ups for tonight's action. And it's going to be an intriguing race. For those just tuning in, we're moments away from the start of the first road course race for the Power Visuals FTF Cup Series campaign, the Kicking the Tires 200K from iRacing Virtual Circuit of the Americas. And this is a stacked field of drivers entering tonight. You have drivers like Kevin King and Graham Bowen amongst the top drivers in practice, but the latter of those two had a blistering quick time in the first place in qualifying. Coming into tonight, Graham Bowen, 6/10 up for the pole tonight in the 0:48, representing Charlotte Phoenix with blistering pace out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you can, be 6/10 up on the guy behind you, it's definitely a good sign. I'm really interested to see how, that kind of evens out as this race goes on, just what kind of speed Graham Bowen has under that hood.
He'll be amongst the drivers to watch. Dylan Olt, Brandon Hocken amongst those also quick on the road courses in this season's campaign so far. But as the drivers continue to prepare themselves for tonight, let's help prepare you by explaining how things went down the last time out. Michael Frisch took the victory last time out. 53 laps led at Atlanta Motor Speedway. That was an intriguing race, and that was an intriguing track in turn for the drivers. Frisch won the race by 3.9 seconds of the checker flag over Will Klein and Brian Mercurio, rounding out the top three. Your thoughts coming into this race, though, on some of the drivers looking to carry momentum?
Yeah, obviously Michael P. Frisch coming off that win last week. That car was fast. It's easy to chalk it up to fuel strategy because at the end of the day, that was the difference. But we still saw that the 58 had, a fair amount of speed. Had a long green flag run in the middle portion of that race where he, got a similar gap. It was about maybe 2.5 seconds on the rest of the field. So that 58 car was really strong. Needed to turn his season around last week and definitely accomplished that with a win. So he's one of the guys I'm looking at to carry that momentum into tonight. Not only that, but, guys like Will Klein. Will Klein finished second last week. Another one of those guys who's, been really quiet so far this season, but who knows? Maybe, after a second place at Atlanta, you can come right here to COTA and show everybody that you're a contender.
Now, you made reference to some of the rules to keep in mind for tonight. Let's talk a quick bit about that for tonight. There are 2 stages that will be ending off at laps 10 and 20 before racing to the very end for the 36-lap distance. However, with road courses this season, it's a lap-and-a-half caution. What that means is the end of the stage is midway through laps 10 and 20, down the back straightaway specifically, out of turn 11 approaching turn 12. That will then bring the field to a 35 miles per hour. Pit road will open for service under that lap, and drivers will maintain 35 miles an hour, then picking up to 45 miles per hour after turn 16 for each of the restarts tonight for the stages in. That's something a bit of a carryover, in fact, for the Grand National Series last year, which ran with the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars in 2021.
Yeah, and like I said, tonight is really just unprecedented for the Bar Visual FTF Cup Series. I mean, group qualifying, as you alluded to, the stage cautions. You see right here, these are our different lines for tonight. You'll see you come to the regular start finish line. You take the caution on that back stretch. You see the special stage finish line as it's marked. So that way we can have that half lap kind of, a concise way of doing these stage cautions to not keep us here all night. But, just really an unprecedented night, as I said. Lots of things to keep your eye on, and it will be interesting to see how it affects strategy and such tonight.
And I will say this, when it came to the Grand National Series race last year at Circuit of the Americas, it opened up the strategy gates for some, and some made it work, some did not, to say the least, when it came to the strategy maneuvering for drivers. Keep in mind, 5 tire sets in the pits. There's going to be a lot of tire forts, possibly with the amount of sets available with the distance. But keep this in mind too, Caleb. 50% is the fuel limit, so half the normal tank you would see in official racing. So you have to take that in consideration for your strategies tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really nice for some of these drivers strategy-wise. You have these 2 stage cautions to plan around. Now, obviously, there are going to be a few unplanned cautions sprinkled throughout here and there. The question is just, when do you think that's going to happen? In a short run, or maybe you get to a long run and start to see some stuff happen there. It's just going to be really interesting, I think, to see how all of this develops.
And we mentioned the drivers trying to focus on the title runs for respective competitors. As they consider the drivers' mean, let's take a quick glance, if we can, towards how the championship has fared out, because it's been interesting as well. Because Michael Frisch enters tonight, and when you add up the total points in the season, with a 5-point advantage, but has that victory in hand on the 6 starts. The other winners this year, Blake Reynolds, Cosmin, Ineshu, along with Brian Mercurio, Dylan Alt, Graham Bolin. And that's going to in turn make some shuffling for how the playoff picture could go for the end of the season, potentially, for a lot of these drivers. Here's a look at those points specifically. Michael Guest, the first driver currently on points. End of the top 20 currently is Alex Kalonix, who is 355 points back already.
Yeah, I mean, you see it right here. These points are pretty indicative of, how everybody's been running this season. So, guys like Michael Guest, Brandon Hawken, a few rough weeks, Michael Guest, especially last week at Atlanta, but, he's only 5 points off the lead. He's, been in contention what feels like every week, bar last week at Atlanta. Then, as I said, Brandon Hawken, Ryan Araki, Nate Stewart, Kevin McAdams. I mean, all these guys have been top 10 contenders all season long. Kevin King, obviously, the defending champion, not quite the season he's wanted so far, but, he absolutely has the means to get it done. So I think tonight will definitely be a wild card of sorts, but I think we'll still see, somewhat indicative standings tonight.
And some of the drivers outside the top 20, some of them you would expect higher up. Brian LaPrade, for example, has shown good speed in the past when it comes to his iRacing career. Sean Butler tied for 39th with Blake Bryant entering this evening. Then Andy Margot has gotten to the point where he has a Lucky Dog paint scheme on his machine in the 48. And that's going to be pivotal for some, for how things fare out team standing wise, but also how provisional standings wise could fare out later on this year.
Absolutely. And looking down through this field, I mean, there are some guys that, haven't been full time, maybe got a late start. Like Michael Gonzalez, for example, he's shown great speed. Wonder where he's going to end up by the end of this, because it feels like he's in the top 3 or 5 every week.
Indeed, that's again look top to bottom amongst the top 40 drivers in the standings currently entering tonight's action, as competitors making their way around the circuit. For the final moments of warm-ups, we'll take a quick break. We come back, reset things for the start of the Kick in the Tires 200K. You're watching FTFGG from the Circuit of the Americas.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers